After defeating its rival Carthage and conquering all of its territories, Rome went on to conquer the entire Mediterranean along with all of Gaul and Britannia. What followed was a long period of unchallenged supremacy of the known world. But as was the case with all empires, that period was bound to end sometime, and that time was the 4th century, in which the emperors found the empire too big to be governed by one emperor, so they decided to split it administratively between 2 emperors. However, by 395 AD, that split would become more than just an administrative one, with the 2 halves separating completely, becoming more close allies than 2 halves of one state. This split would have grave results, as it left the western part weak and with not enough resources to deal with the massive threat that was looming close to them. This threat manifested into tribal incursions from Germanic tribes that were no longer mere raids, but full invasions intended to conquer and settle various regions of the empire. The first invasion was attempted by the Quarians on the Danubian front, but the border legions commanded by Flavius Stilicho managed to defeat them in battle and wipe the invading force entirely. Stilicho then crossed into their homeland and burned it down as punishment. The second invasion was a naval one by the Nordic Jutes into Britannia, in which they captured Camulodunum. A legion was present in Londinium right before this invasion took place, but it was recalled to the mainland to deal with a Suabian incursion into Gaul. The defeated Suabians retreated towards the Rhine and attempted to sack Argentoratum, but was repulsed by the local garrison. Feeling empowered, the local commander of the town garrison rebelled against imperial authority. However, not long after, another Suabian army invaded Gaul, sacking Rotomagus on their path. They tried the same with another town, but they were repulsed this time. Meanwhile, Colonia Agrippina fell under Alaman control. Things would only get worse after this. A Saxon force besieged a town in Gaul, while Roman Illyria was facing a massive invasion consisting of 3 tribes, the Ostrogoth, the Visigoth, and Isages, while the Alamans attacked Noricum. All Roman field armies moved quickly to deal with the invasions. Stilicho's army managed to fend off the Alamans. The Gallic army also repelled the Saxons, but only for the rebels in the nearby town to come and inflict a heavy defeat on it, while the Illyrian army was wiped out completely by the combined Gothic forces. Following their victory, the Ostrogoth captured and settled in Siccia, while the Visigoth moved onto Aquileia and besieged it. Stilicho moved quickly to deal with them, driving them back, after which he also completely crushed an Iazyges army, though his army was badly beaten afterward. Shortly after, a new wave of attacks hit the empire. The retreating Visigoth merged with another Visigothic force and captured Sirmium. The Alamans renewed their attacks, capturing a city in Noricum and sacking another in Gaul. The Suabians also renewed their attacks, targeting Avaricum this time. Although the Gallic legions were finally reinforced with the forces withdrawn from North Africa, they arrived too late to save Avaricum from sacking. The Romans still caught up with them and finally defeated them for good. While the Suabian invasion was happening, Roman Britannia was under attack from all sides. The Jutes from the east, the Caledonians from the north, and the Ebdonoi from the west. A couple of towns resisted for a while, but by the end of the attacks, all but one town remained in Roman hands, which 2 years later fell in Ebdonoi hands. News about an impending massive barbarian invasion of Gaul reached the Roman emperor, so he sent the 2 armies he raised over the past 2 years to protect Gaul, while Stilicho's battered army healed most of its wounds. The vicious nomadic Huns launched their own invasion through Pannonia, razing every town in their path to the ground, diving deep into Roman territory until they reached Ravenna, where Stilicho met them in battle. Although he achieved victory, it came at the price of most of his men and most importantly, his own life. The Alemanni invaded once again, this time with a large army headed straight towards the capital. The Romans sent whatever forces they had left in Italy to stop them, but they were easily defeated. With no one to stop them, the Alemanni captured the capital along with the last remaining Roman town beyond the Alps. The Visigoths also took advantage of Illyria being undefended to capture new territory, taking 2 towns and then putting the biggest city in the region, Salona, to a long siege. With the Romans fully preoccupied on the European front, the African provinces were left entirely undefended. This made it easy for the Gautalians to siege and capture Caesarea, while the Moors took a small town in southern Spain. The Moors then tried taking over Cordoba, but they failed while taking heavy casualties. The Gaetolians continued their attack east, taking over Constantina. The Garamantians also launched their own 3-pronged attack, targeting all Roman holdings in Libya. Sabrata and Macomedes fell easily to the invaders, while Liptus Magna held them off, until the remaining armies joined the main one and overpowered the garrison. While the Romans were collapsing in Africa, they weren't doing any better in Europe. The Alemanni took over yet another town, while the Vandals settled in Verona, and the Saxons settled in Fiorentia. This left the heart of the empire disconnected from the rest of it, so an order was sent to the remaining army in Gaul to return to reopen the link. However, the Vandals, who had just captured Genoa, ambushed the army, dealing heavy casualties and forcing it to retreat back to Gaul. With no armies to stop them, the Vandals continued their rampage, capturing Segusio and then returning to their capital to gather more forces, for their next target was the city of Rome itself. After gathering enough forces, the Vandal army marched towards Rome, laying siege to it. The Vandals made several attempts to scale the walls, but they were repulsed every time with heavy casualties, so they decided to bring in siege weapons to create breaches in the wall. This worked, and they finally entered the city. A battle ensued with the garrison, which surprisingly the Vandals lost. This, along with the amount of losses they suffered, forced them to retreat back to their capital. However, before the Romans could celebrate, before they could even try to repair their walls, the Saxons came at them with a large army, and with the wall already breached, the Saxons quickly entered the city. The remaining garrison tried stopping them, but to no avail. The Eternal City, the spiritual capital of the empire, had fallen in the hands of the barbarians. This was a huge shock to the Roman world, and a very demoralizing event, but not everything was lost yet. The Romans still control a sizable empire. Perhaps they can make a comeback, maybe even reclaim Rome from the invaders, or will they keep collapsing further and further? Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It took me weeks to make, so I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button, and please do subscribe to let me know that you want to see more videos like this. The next video will most likely be the second part to this, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you on the next one.